Hello 3D1. Let's talk about the ceramic process that you'll be following in our classroom. The objectives are track and explain the ceramic process in the classroom, beginning with the introduction to the assignment to the completion using glaze or paint. Also, explain the 10 golden rules of ceramics and why they are important for our class. So the first part of our projects, I will demonstrate the techniques. Project examples are shown. Basically, the project has been assigned, right? You'll have time to do some planning, some research, some sketching. I do have to make approvals throughout this project. So there are some examples. The next step is making the project out of plastic clay, right? This is clay that is soft. Usually I give you about 6 to 7 class periods. This is when you're asking questions, you're getting help, you're helping others. If you're getting behind, use study hall and sometimes after school if the room is open. At some point, the project is finished. Make sure you take a photo and let the project dry to bone dry. I usually take care of that part. This is when you're getting a grade for the building portion. So you get 2 grades for ceramic projects. You can't attach the wet clay to the bone dry clay, however, and the bone dry clay is the most fragile state. And if you do break your project, you can redo it, though you have to use your own time. And yes, you can recycle the clay at any point before we fire it. Then Miss J places your artwork in the kiln for a bisque fire. That photo is of the inside of one of our kilns full of bone dry clay. And so it fires up to 1900 degrees, takes 24 hours to heat up and cool down. Again, think of like your oven at home. There's a chemical change that happens inside the clay. The silica becomes solid. And there's a photo of it after. And now we have bisqueware. And then you get to glaze your project. This adds color, and I have everything set up in room 11. We use these little cups to sort the glazes, and you're going to have a variety of colors to use. Then the artwork is placed in the kiln for a glaze fire. It fires up to 2000 degrees. Also takes about 24 hours. There's a chemical change on the surface. And so remember, at this point, we cannot recycle the clay when it has been bisque fired. That's a photo there of an artwork that has clay before it has been fired. And there it is with the colors all nice and saturated. So that is officially glazeware. Then Miss J grades your project. So you're receiving a glazeware grade. So yes, you get 2 grades for your project. This is when you're taking a photo of your completed artwork for your virtual portfolio. Then Miss J will be saving it for the district art show, which typically happens in May, or you will be able to take your project home. So that is the ceramic process. Now, if you are painting your project, we do not fire it in the kiln for a second time. Now let's go over the 10 golden rules of ceramics. And this is something I've seen used in many ceramic classes. Number 1, make sure you're covering your clay with plastic in between classes to prevent it from drying out, which means put your artwork inside a plastic bag. Clay dust is harmful to breathe if exposed for long periods of time. Keep your area clean. Use sponge and water. Why? Well, clay contains microscopic particles called silica. This can irritate and damage your lungs. So again, this is dust that's lighter than air. It floats around the room for a long time. It can be inhaled. So what this means is the clay dust is hazardous to your health if exposed for long periods of time. I just emphasize this to remind us all of the danger of clay dust. So you want to keep your area clean, organized, keep clay scraps off the floor, and always clean up with sponge and water. And number 3, clay pieces should never be thicker than your thumb. It's a good rule to think about. Why? Because clay that is thicker than your thumb can contain air pockets, and this will actually take longer to dry out prior to firing. So if you see me tell you, "Hey, is that hollowed out?" I might be worried that it's too thick. And this is an example of what would happen if your project blew up in the kiln, because again, there might be trapped air or the clay was just too thick. Number 4, score and slip clay pieces together when clay is wet or leather hard. Otherwise, your clay piece will fall apart. Why? When the clay are similar levels of moisture, it's easier for them to connect together. Number 5, wedge clay to remove air pockets and achieve consistency. Why are we doing this? Well, if clay has air pockets and it's fired, the air needs to escape, right? The air is heating up, has to escape, and then your piece will crack or blow up. So I usually give you recycled clay. This means it needs to be mixed up. If I give you clay that does not need to be recycled, I will let you know. Number 6, hollow out sculptural forms and put needle holes in the bottom of air pockets. This example here shows us what happens when the sides of the sculpture have blown up in the kiln. Number 7, once clay has been fired, it cannot be recycled. Bone dry clay can be recycled. Number 8, handle your project with care and gently with 2 hands. I have seen students accidentally drop their project in the classroom and it becomes smushed. So we don't want your project to break. It's your responsibility to deal with it. Number 9, don't touch another person's work unless if you have their permission. Number 10, now why does clay explode during firing? There's a couple reasons. The first one is the moisture. So the clay should be completely dry. If there's any water in the clay, that turns to steam. Steam is hot air that's going to cause the clay to explode. The second reason is the trapped air. Forms should not be completely enclosed. So we need to wedge our clay and add a hole for air to escape.